Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. New commander ruined his career after he made me sign documents that I shouldn't sign. The second story. We were told that our timesheets have to reflect 8 hours a day. The third story. Company lost a valuable employee, asked me to return, but I refused them. The first story is New Army captain tries to end her career. The background. I used to be an armorer in the US Army. I was the person in charge of securing and maintaining all the weapons. I was stationed overseas at a base that only had one arms room, and I was the guy who ran it. So instead of just being responsible for the weapons in my unit, I was responsible for all the weapons in the entire post. On paper, that's a job that's supposed to be done by an E6 with a 2-person support staff. In reality, the position was chronically short-staffed. It was just me as an E4 doing the job of 3 people. Because the position was critical to the operations of a bunch of different units, including things like PSYOPs and Special Forces, where everything about them is classified by default, and joint operations with the Navy and Air Force, and a few foreign militaries who were working with the US. I had to get a security clearance that was higher than everyone else in my own unit. As far as I knew, there were only 4 other people on the post, with clearance high enough to do what I did, and they were all officers. This led to some amusing situations where I was accidentally called for security briefings that were way above my pay grade. That sucked because I was on call all the time and had to go to work anytime anyone needed a weapon. Being on call was supposed to be a duty rotation, but I was the only one who could do it, so I slept in the arms room a lot. I wanted to make sure I had as little to do as possible, so I got very good at my job. How good? During an Army-wide review of the entire supply chain, my post was found to be the best-run arms room in the entire Army. I won a medal and everything. Then we had a change in command, and the new captain hated that I didn't have to go on training exercises because I wasn't allowed to be more than 30 minutes away from the arms room ever. The compliance. The new captain was absolutely determined to take me on a training mission. She'd somehow gotten it into her head that I was a slacker, which I absolutely was, but only because I was efficient and peeved off that I never got to leave the base. So she drew up a bunch of paperwork to sign the arms room over to the supply sergeant. I refused to sign because the person with all the ammo and the person with all the guns are supposed to be different people. Next, she tried to sign the arms room over to the PSYOPs company commander. I refused to sign because that commander had become a friend of mine, so I knew he was required to leave the base weekly for security briefings. Finally, she tried to sign the arms room over to our company's supply lieutenant. I tried to explain that the lieutenant didn't have high enough security clearance, but she cut me off. She said she was tired of my excuses. Then she ordered me to sign and threatened me with an Article 15. I wrote under duress on the paperwork. She didn't even look at the signature. So I sent an email to the warrant officer who was in charge of logistics for the area. He was the guy who'd given me the word I mentioned earlier, so he was peeved when he found out what was going on, and went on the SH little weekend training exercise and basically enjoyed my vacation. That sequence of events happened on a Friday afternoon. The chief didn't get my email until Monday morning. On Monday afternoon, my captain was relieved of command. I eventually had to testify at her disciplinary hearing. My second favorite part of the whole experience was the supply lieutenant, who got a slap on the wrist for inadvertently obeying illegal orders because he hadn't learned the regulations before signing. Saying, "Is it like that for you all the time? This has to change." My favorite part was the full bird colonel in charge of the hearing asking my former commander, "Your soldier was awarded for being the best at his job in the entire Army. After you refused your orders for the first few times, why didn't you start asking questions?" Edit. Some clarity about a bunch of questions I've been getting. This was at Camp Hialeah. It doesn't exist anymore, but you can look it up to see all the different units that were there. They all used the same arms room, and yes, that's weird and it sucked. I had a TS clearance. It was explained to me that knowing the weapons logistics of the whole post was a big deal. I had the training and deployment schedules of 24 units, including foreign militaries, other branches, and an SF group. That's a lot of important information, and it was definitely above my pay grade. I absolutely should not have been the person doing that job, but I was. I knew I needed to cover my A, which is why I was so careful about record keeping. There were probably more than 4 people with TS clearance on the base. I only knew of 4. Unsurprisingly, none of them wanted to do my job and had the clout to say no when asked. I didn't actually go to any fancy security briefings. I was mistakenly called twice and promptly told to leave. I think the person scheduling the briefings just sent a shotgun email to everyone who had a TS clearance. After the second time, I stopped getting them, so someone must have sorted it out. At the disciplinary hearing, I was called to answer questions. I showed up, answered, and was dismissed. It was a long drive to another base for 30 minutes of standing and talking. I don't know anything about the results. The captain didn't come back. That's all I know. The award I won is called an ARCOM. It's not uncommon. I wasn't some kind of indispensable prodigy. I was just in a job above my pay grade and scared of effing up, so I took very meticulous records. Because I was the only one doing anything, I had to really know the system, so I got an award for being good at passing an audit. I don't understand why your new captain wanted you to go on a training mission. You have your duties to follow. And why did she think you were a slacker? You said you had rewards for good work. Didn't she know that? She deserved to be relieved of her command, because she made you sign the papers. Being relieved of any command means she won't be getting promoted anytime soon, and will fall behind her peers. I like it when there's a change of command because there's some drama going on like that and it's fun. You had a job set up, but very often a new boss, or in this story officer, tries to change things just to leave a mark. I understand that they want to show themselves off to their superiors, but it's not always a good idea. It can lead to bad consequences, such as being fired or demoted. I also want to say, the mere fact that she wasn't drummed out of the service at that hearing does not mean she was allowed to stay in. She did in fact end her entire career. The second story is, let's just make sure those timesheets are accurate. In the commercial construction world, the management team on site are generally all salaried, employees of the general contractor. Superintendents, assistant superintendents, safety officers, quality control inspectors, etc. Generally anyone in the job trailer. 8 hours a week or 80 hours. Our checks are the same every time. I'm a senior superintendent, and part of this role is ensuring that timesheets are filled out correctly. Individual expense reports are completed, and we've got adequate manpower from laborers to tradesmen. About 6 months ago, we had a superintendent meeting at our office. Nothing new. We do this every month. However, one of the things that was discussed happened to be timekeeping. We were told our timesheets have to reflect 8 hours a day, regardless of how long we're actually there, and they have to be sent in no later than 9 a.m. on Monday, or checks will be withheld or late that week. To me, the timesheets have always seemed redundant because our checks don't change, and we usually look at an app we're required to download that clocks us in and out automatically, according to our location relative to the site. Everyone always rolls in around 6:30 a.m., even though the day doesn't start till 7 a.m. Most of us are there until 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. It's just the nature of the beast with $500 million to $200 million projects. We get gates and doors open early for subcontractors, get set up for the day, and we're ready to go. This timekeeping guideline was reiterated several times through emails, so I decided it was only right that we comply. I have 2 assistant supers, a superintendent 2 safety officers, 2 QC officers, and 2 admin assistants in the job trailer. That's 10 in the trailer, counting myself. I also have a 12-man laborer crew, 14 carpenters, and 2 trade foremen. That's 38 timesheets, and altogether, and 13 expense reports, along with random mileage reports. 51 plus individual reports altogether. That's just one project. The entire company has around 40 projects running right now. If you've used Outlook, you know that you can schedule emails to be delivered at a predetermined time and date. So here's what we did. We all, 38, meet in a parking lot about a block away from the site. Our apps clock us in when we pull into the job site. At 6:55, we all pull out and arrive on site at 6:56 to 7 o'clock, and then unlock the gates. At this point, there are roughly 200 other tradesmen standing there with tools, or sitting in their vehicles waiting on walk gates to be open. Once they're open, these guys go to any one of the 17 floors in the building, waiting turns for a very slow hydromobile construction elevator. By the time they're set up to work, it's easily 8 a.m. At 3:30 p.m., the walk gates are locked, and all personnel has to be out of the building in sight, so they're all rolling up around 2:45 in order to be off-site by 3:30. This reduces production from about 7 hours a day down to around 5, or approximately 500 man-hours of production per day. I also had our assistant supers and AAs start scheduling timesheet and report deliveries, one every minute from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. on Monday mornings. From what I hear, other senior supers I told about this began doing the same type of thing. The loss in production and the annoying chime of new emails every minute had their new guidelines squashed in 3 weeks, overtime approved for hourly employees, and Saturday work approved for subcontractors, so we could get back on schedule and make up for the approximately 7,500 lost man-hours of production, just from our project alone. When asked about it, I simply stated that I was following instruction, precisely as it was given. There's been no more micromanaging. Your superiors made a mistake that resulted in the loss of man-hours. Micromanaging is definitely not their strong suit. Your boss should have tested how this innovation would work. Never make big changes without a test run. Use a small sample size if possible. The saying trust but verify shouldn't only be used for others but also for yourself. Trust in your capability to come up with improvements, but also verify your idea actually is an improvement. There may be many bad ideas, but you can always learn from them so that your next idea will be better. Using this experience, you can create a great innovation. I would also say that you should listen to your subordinates, because they are doing the work. They know better how much time they need. This can be discussed at the conference and come to a consensus. They want to hold on to their power, that their power play is costing the company a lot of money. You have better things to do than fill out redundant timesheets. The last story is, no problem, I can wait. So I worked at a great engineering place for a few years. I ran a small team doing hands-on work often directly for design engineers. We got a new manager who turned out to be a total disaster, and particularly hated the close and casual communication between my team and design. Felt it was going over his head. He first put rules in place requiring going through several people to relay issues back to design and similar fudge. My team was cut down to just me and one other quite new guy. We weren't hugely busy, so the main trouble being if I went on holiday, I'd come back to a lot of rework. He also did clever things like standing outside the toilets to ensure not body wash their hands before breaks. Some oily work for some guys, so washing up could take a few minutes. Instead, everyone washed up 20 minutes early, then did nothing until break. So in quiet periods, I started grabbing a spare computer and typing up work instructions. Not surprisingly, Super Manager couldn't resist making comment on this, but when I explained the issue, he said it shouldn't just make work instructions, then promised to send along the official work instruction format. He never did, but I shrugged it off and said nothing. Few months later, and the company being bought out by an international firm, and the inevitable major redundancies. My name was high on his hit list. I had a good idea due to history, even though everyone else was sure I was safe and effectively essential, especially with my team being just me by then. Anyway, true enough, I was made redundant, but had a fantastic exit interview. One of the principal engineers had offered to attend with me. Super Manager and HR listed off some laughable reasons to make me redundant, such as my rearranging doctor's appointments to stay late, and my coming into work night shift on a holiday. I still don't know how they thought these made sense. After that, I just quietly listed off the various roles I was sorely covering for them, technical skill sets like fiber optics and HV, etc., but happily accepted my redundancy payout and signed off IP and such. Then Super Manager, not feeling entirely comfortable with the looks the principal engineer was giving him, asked me for the work instructions and I had to answer, "Oh, you told me to stop writing them until you gave me the format you wanted." They rang me and offered for me to come back, but I politely declined. I heard later that they had to hire 3 people to cover my work. You were a good employee. It's not fair that they fired you. Bosses should value their employees as long as they work. I used to work in a warehouse. The woman who was my supervisor had been working for 5 years and was doing the job herself. She needed all of her work time to complete this task. 8 hours to do the bare minimum. I practiced with her. At first, I did the way she taught me. After that, I started making small changes and adding new things, improving the system. What she did in 8 hours, it took me 4 hours. This happened a few months after I was hired. In order for me to attend college classes, I asked the boss to transfer me to another shift. He agreed. I was happy. My boss was always grateful for my innovations and gave endless good recommendations over the years. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.